There's something no one warned you about, something you discover late when you can't go back, when you start seeing what others don't see, when your perception expands beyond the collective consensus. When you begin to question the narratives everyone accepts without blinking, you cross a threshold. And that threshold has no door back. You can't unlearn what you've learned. You can't close your eyes once they've been opened. And that, contrary to what all the Enlightenment gurus promised you, isn't liberation. It's exile. It's loneliness. It's the highest price you'll ever pay for seeing the truth. Alan Watts understood it. He lived it. And he tried to warn us, but no one really listens to warnings. We all want to wake up. We all want to see beyond the veil. We all want to be the enlightened one in a room full of blind people. Until we get it. Until we really see. And then we discover that seeing what others don't see doesn't make you superior. It makes you a foreigner in your own land. Someone who speaks a language no one else understands. A lone witness to a movie. Everyone else is happily enjoying without questioning the script. Because here's the brutal truth no one mentions in spiritual self-help books. Most people don't want to wake up. They say they do. They buy the books. They attend the retreats. They post the inspirational quotes. But deep down, in that honest place they rarely visit, they're comfortable in the illusion. They're safe in the consensus. They're accompanied in collective ignorance. And when you show up with your uncomfortable questions, with your expanded vision, with your inability to pretend you don't see what you see, they don't celebrate you. They reject you. They isolate you. They turn you into a threat. Because your mere existence questions everything they've built, every belief system they hold, every narrative that lets them sleep at night, every convenient lie that makes their reality tolerable. And people protect their illusions more ferociously than anything else, more than their money, more than their relationships, more than their own life sometimes. Because without those illusions, they'd have to face the void, the meaninglessness, the absence of absolute certainty, and that terrifies them more than anything. So when you start seeing differently, when your perception drifts off the marked path, when you begin to point out inconsistencies in the collective matrix, you find yourself at a dangerous crossroads. You can stay quiet. You can pretend. You can learn to speak the language of the sleepers while remaining awake inside. That's the safe option. The option that preserves your relationships, your social status, your belonging. But it has a cost. The cost of living divided, of being one thing inside and another thing outside, of betraying your own perception to keep the peace. Or you can speak. You can share what you see. You can try to wake others up. And this is where you learn the most painful lesson. You can't wake up someone who isn't ready. Your clearest words will sound like madness to ears that don't want to hear. Your most obvious truth will be dismissed as delusion by minds that have decided to stay closed. And the rejection you'll experience won't be a mild disagreement. It will be visceral. It will be personal. It will be expulsion. Alan Watts talked about this constantly, about the danger of seeing through social conventions, of realizing that most of what we call reality is a collective agreement, a consensus construction, a theater where everyone pretends the script is real. And anyone who dares to point out that it's theater, who breaks the fourth wall, who refuses to keep acting, gets punished for ruining the performance. Because the performance must go on. The show must go on. And anyone who threatens the collective suspension of disbelief is an enemy of the system. But here's the part that really destroys you. You won't only be rejected by the crowd, you'll be questioned by yourself. Because when your perception diverges so radically from what everyone else sees, when your reality is so different from the consensus, you start to doubt. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm crazy? What if my awakening is actually my insanity? What if everyone else is sane and I'm the only one who's lost? That doubt is agonizing because you have no way to verify it objectively. There's no reality meter, no impartial judge who can tell you with certainty who is seeing clearly. All you have is your own experience, your own perception, your own inner sense of truth. And when that sense contradicts literally everyone around you, the pressure to conform is overwhelming. To say you were wrong, that it was a phase, that you've returned to normal, to come back to the fold, to stop asking uncomfortable questions, to go back to who you were before you saw, but you can't. Once you see, you can't not see. It's like explaining color to someone born blind and then pretending you can't see it either. It's impossible. So you get stuck between two worlds, the world everyone else happily lives in, and the world you see now, wider, more complex, more disorienting, but undeniably more real, at least to you. And in that in-between space, in that limbo between worlds, you discover something no one told you. The loneliness of the awakened is absolute. You can be surrounded by people and feel completely alone. Because none of them see what you see. None of them speak the language you speak now. None of them understand the references you make, the connections you perceive, the patterns you recognize. You're speaking from a different dimension, and they're living in the previous one. And there is no bridge, no perfect translation, only clumsy approximations that fail to capture the essence of what you're trying to communicate. Watts said, "Awakening is realizing you are the universe experiencing itself. That there is no real separation between you and the cosmos. That everything is a dance, a game, a cosmic play in which divinity pretends to forget itself so it can rediscover itself. It's beautiful in theory, poetic, profound. Until you live in a society that operates entirely on the opposite premise, that insists on separation, on the isolated individual, on constant competition, on perpetual fear. So you try to live from that expanded understanding while navigating a system designed for the opposite. And it's like trying to fly in a world that insists only walking exists. Everyone looks at you like you're crazy when you flap your arms. They tell you to calm down, to be realistic, to keep your feet on the ground. And maybe, eventually, you do. Maybe you stop trying to fly in public, but you know you can. You know flight is possible. And that gap between what you know and what you can express openly splits you in two. There's a reason, so many mystics, visionaries, prophets ended up isolated. Not because they chose isolation, because isolation chose them, because their vision separated them, put them on a different frequency. And even if they could walk among people, they were no longer of the people. They were visitors, observers, perpetual foreigners in a land they once called home. And the cruelest part is you can't explain it. You can't make others understand the weight of seeing what they can't see, the burden of knowing what they don't want to know, the loneliness of perceiving what they refuse to perceive. Because to them it sounds like arrogance, like spiritual superiority, like you think you're better. When the reality is the opposite, you don't feel better. You feel alienated, disconnected, like you've been exiled from the shared human experience everyone else enjoys effortlessly. Alan Watts drank a lot, and people judged him for it. How can a spiritual teacher have that problem? But maybe that was his way of enduring the gap between what he saw and what he could share, between the vastness of his understanding and the narrowness of the world around him, between his perception of the cosmic game and the deadly seriousness with which everyone else played. Maybe alcohol was a temporary bridge. a way to return to a frequency where he could connect with others. Even if it was an illusion, even if it was an escape, I'm not justifying it. I'm not recommending it. But I understand it. I understand the temptation to dull expanded perception, to turn down the volume on clarity, to blur the edges of the vision that separates you from everyone else. Because seeing too clearly is a form of social blindness. It blinds you to the conventions that allow surface-level connection. It makes it impossible to participate in trivial conversations. It makes you unable to pretend interest in drama that everyone else takes deadly seriously. And then you face another decision. Do you keep expanding your perception? Do you keep deepening your understanding? Or do you stop here? Do you put limits on your awakening to maintain some connection to humanity? Because if you keep going, if you keep dismantling illusions, questioning assumptions, expanding consciousness, you'll drift farther away. You'll isolate more. You'll become something others won't even recognize as human. You'll be an alien in your own species. Here's the secret spiritual teachers rarely admit. There's a point of no return. There's a level of understanding beyond which you can't function normally in society, where social masks become unbearable, where ego games are transparently absurd, where worldly concerns seem so insignificant you can't pretend they matter. And at that point, you've sacrificed your belonging on the altar of truth, and there's no going back. Watts understood the central paradox. The ego can't understand no ego. The mind can't comprehend what is beyond the mind. Thought can't capture what transcends thought. So all these attempts to explain awakening, to teach enlightenment, to transmit expanded vision are doomed from the start. They are fingers pointing at the moon, but not the moon itself. And most people end up worshipping the finger. So what do you do when you see? When you really see, you can't not see. You can't voluntarily close your eyes once they're open. You can't return to the ignorance you once enjoyed. That innocence is gone forever. So you remain in this strange state, awake in a world of sleepers, seeing the game while others play it seriously, recognizing the play while others are completely immersed in their characters. And the temptation is to judge, to feel superior, to look down on those who don't see. But that's the trap of spiritual ego. Because the moment you judge, the moment you separate yourself as better, you lose the very understanding you thought you had. Because part of seeing clearly is recognizing that everyone is exactly where they need to be. That their blindness isn't a failure. It's part of the game. It's part of how the universe experiences itself, through infinite perspectives. Some awake, many asleep, all valid, all necessary, but living from that understanding while simultaneously experiencing rejection, isolation, and misunderstanding is almost unbearable tension, because part of you knows everything is fine, that everything is perfect as it is, that even your loneliness is part of the cosmic plan. But another part of you, the human part, longs for connection, understanding, someone who sees what you see, someone you can talk to without translating, someone who understands without you having to explain. And maybe you find those people occasionally. Other exiles, others who crossed the same threshold, and there's momentary relief, temporary validation. But even among the awakened, there are levels, there are nuances, there are differences in what each one sees. So it's never perfect understanding, only a better approximation, only shared loneliness instead of total loneliness. Watts talked about the need to play, not to take awakening too seriously, to recognize that even the spiritual seeking is part of the game, that the enlightenment you're chasing is already here, that you were never lost, that the whole path is an illusion, an elaborate game. Consciousness plays with itself, and he's right, completely. But that understanding doesn't remove human pain. It doesn't erase the loneliness of seeing differently. It only gives you context for it, a frame to understand it, but it doesn't make it disappear. So you live in this paradox, knowing everything is perfect while experiencing suffering. Understanding everything is illusion, while the illusion hurts for real. Recognizing there is no real problem, while very real problems affect your daily life. It's spiritual schizophrenia, a mind split between two realities, and holding both. At once requires a balance most people can't maintain. That's why many who partially awaken seek a way back. They find a way to reintegrate, to lower their frequency, to compromise their vision to recover their belonging. And there's no shame in that, no failure. It's simply recognizing that the price of full awakening is too high, that they prefer human connection to ultimate truth, that they choose imperfect love over perfect clarity. And that's a valid choice, maybe even a wise one. But for some, there is no choice. For some, truth is compulsive. They can't not see, they can't not question, they can't not expand, even knowing the price, even understanding the cost. They're trapped in an upward trajectory, destined to drift farther and farther from common human experience, destined for growing loneliness, destined to be prophets without an audience, seers without validation, awake in the nightmare of awakening. And maybe that's the final veil, the last illusion that must fall. The idea that awakening is desirable, the notion that seeing clearly will make you happy, the belief that the truth will set you free. Because maybe it doesn't set you free. Maybe it only binds you differently to a new prison. More spacious, perhaps, but a prison all the same. Because as long as you exist in human form, as long as you live in a body with needs, a mind with patterns, a heart with longings, you will be subject to suffering. And seeing through illusions doesn't eliminate that fundamental suffering. It only makes it more conscious, sharper, lonelier. Alan Watts died relatively young, 60, worn out perhaps by the weight of seeing, by the effort of translating, by the futility of trying to wake up a world that prefers to sleep. And he left behind mountains of words, rivers of teachings, oceans of wisdom. But he also left an implicit warning in his life itself, in his struggles, in his contradictions. The warning is simple but brutal. Seeing what others don't see has a cost, and that cost never decreases. You only learn to carry it better, or you don't learn and it destroys you slowly. The way it did him, the way it has done so many before, the way it will do many after. So if you're on the path, if you've begun to see, if the matrix is starting to turn transparent, if the illusions are beginning to fall, consider carefully. Do you really want to continue? Are you willing to pay the price? Because there's no glory in this, no trophy, no recognition. There is only truth, raw, lonely, relentless. And that truth won't make you popular. It won't make you loved. It won't make you happy. It will only make you free. And freedom, it turns out, is the loneliest prison of all. If you made it to the end, comment, "I am free," and I will personally reply to you myself. And if this content resonated with you, subscribe to be part of it and hit like if you enjoyed it. Until next time.